I've been wanting to say this all weekend. What's up, heels and baby faces? How y'all doing? Yeah! So, there is one disclaimer. No Hell in a Cell 1998 questions. Because, who said aw? The guys, they literally did a 30-minute video about the entire match. You can just go watch it. But are you guys ready for this? Are you guys ready for this? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome to the stage Hall of Fame pro wrestlers, Mick Foley and Lita. Give them some love, guys. Come on, make some noise for them. Oh, y'all can keep that going. I mean, they've done a lot in pro wrestling. Y'all can keep that going.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a perfectly good reason for being late. Lita and I were talking over there. So once Lita gets out here, you will recognize, well, these two really like hanging out. And we do. And I'll let her come out and we'll explain why this is so much more fun for us than the ordinary panel.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all can chant Lita's name if you want to. Well, welcome to both of you. Welcome to both of you. Oh, wait.
Should we just keep our conversation
let's keep it going,
or should we involve people here in the room? Maybe?
If you two want to just talk, I will not ask you a single question. I'm not going to stop.
Be careful, because we could just sit here. We have a lot of stories together, separately, you know. But yeah, no, we both love doing Comic-Cons. A chance. We grew up, many of us, in your living rooms, so this is an amazing opportunity to get to bridge that gap and put faces to all those moments that we shared collectively throughout our entire careers, and get a chance to hear some of your stories as well. So if we haven't met you at the table, please make time to come by and say hi. If you have questions, this is the time for it. And if public speaking is not your thing, then come over and just ask us personally.
Yeah, and while you're there, we're not going to stop you from making a purchase. And we'll do the big group photo at the end. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
And ladies.
So guys, usually when you exit after the panel, don't go right away. We'll do a group photo with everyone. We'll just kind of scoot in the middle here, okay? All right. So,
first, let me just start by saying, I don't like to pander to audiences.
First lie, Mick's told today.
No, and I think the people here, right here in Corpus Christi, are too good to be pandered to. Yeah. So when I say something is the best or the coolest, I might just think I'm saying it in front of the audience, but Corpus Christi, Water Street, the best Whataburger in the country. Am I right? And if Amy wasn't 100% vegan, she'd agree with me.
In spirit, I agree with you. Take your word for it.
We need that.
We need that collab. Yes. Let's get going. Start a petition.
Well, that was fantastic. Okay, those questions are now pointless. No, I'm kidding. First of all, thank y'all so much for being here. We really appreciate y'all doing the panel, being here in Corpus for the Comic-Con. How's it been for you so far this weekend?
I've really enjoyed myself. Is Joey the Voice Man Martinez here?
He is not today.
He's not. How many of you know Joey?
It's Jonathan.
Jonathan the Voice Man Martinez. Well, this is a cool story. I said this at lunch. Jonathan comes up 2 days ago and he starts hitting me with SpongeBob, like dead on SpongeBob, Patrick. He throws Sergeant Slaughter. He's got all kinds of voices. And I actually filmed him doing the voices so I could post it. And when he walked away, his, I know it was a relative or so. That was you're his cousin. Oh, you're the guy.
Yes, sir.
And you walked up and you told me, listen, Jonathan's autistic and he was nonverbal up until he was 12. And it was SpongeBob and doing voices that allowed him to find whatever hidden key was in his mind that unlocked it. And now I'll go on record as saying, you can't shut that guy up, right? And so, look, I'm doing pretty good. You know, I am doing pretty good. I mean, I've done worse, I've done better at cons, but for me, it's the experiences you take home like that. Like, that's something I'll never forget. You know, and there's a young lady, she hasn't made it here yet, because I got a call early in the morning from my agent saying, did you agree to have a meal served? Because a lady wants to know if she can come in with a cooking knife. And so it's a young lady who's an aspiring chef. And she's been on like Junior Chefs, and she's making me a brisket. And those are the cool things that you take along, the stories you hear. And you see people's eyes light up, and there even a few tears. I wasn't exactly a heartthrob as a wrestler.
Well, you are now.
Well, I am now. Yeah, thank you. But to me, I am having a good time, and I'm doing pretty well. But more important than the finances, I've got some great stories and experiences to bring home with me.
When we would do WWE autograph sessions back in the day, there was like a security person on one side of the table and the other side, and they would shove, and they'd say, no personalizations, nothing. And, you would do your best to try to connect with your eyes or say hello to make that person feel not bummed that they came to this pandemonium autograph session. But what I love about these cons, no matter how busy they are, we usually get a few minutes to get to have these stories told to us, to get to connect, to have people tell me their family, what they were watching when they were growing up, how they got grounded for trying to do a lead assault off the couch and things like that. And I love being able to be on the other side of the pandemonium and connect with you guys in this chapter. So I love being out here everywhere, and right here in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yeah, you did that well.
Well, awesome. So my first question, the first one I already asked. You two have cemented your legacies in pro wrestling. There is no denying it, no questioning it. Just everything you've done is so firmly in place. You've inspired so many. How does it feel knowing that you have and will always have that long-lasting impact on pro wrestling, no matter what?
Well, one of the things Amy and I were talking about, Amy is Lita, in case you didn't know, was that we're really lucky because in this case there's only 2 wrestlers, but we'll go to like WrestleCon where there are 150 wrestlers, and fans have to make choices with their money, difficult choices, and we're lucky to be in that like top 15, 20 out of 150, and I feel like we did our part by doing what we did in the ring well, but we were also really fortunate to have been in WWE at a really special time, and so it's I do love today's current product, but a lot of the time when I tune in, I go, wow, that was incredible stuff. I don't remember a single person because it's hard to stand out, and we're lucky that we were allowed, in Amy's case, I don't want to tell your life story, but there's no other story like hers, going unannounced to Mexico City to attempt to become a luchador, which she did, and in my case, traveling 700 miles round trip back in the 55 mile per hour era, so that was a hike, and you can't teach that type of, I guess you'd say, you can't teach that type of character. You create character by doing those things. And so it's a short step from having character to creating characters, because essentially, in the words of Nigel Tufnell from This Is Spinal Tap, you just turn it up to 11. So that's what we've been able to do.
The funny thing is, people ask, and I'm sure they ask you, it's like, how did you get into wrestling? How did you get started? And I'm like, well, I don't recommend that. I recommend now that you just Google wrestling schools and find one that has good reviews, and you stay safe and you go there. But to have our kind of Wild West journey, and I would say I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it created this wacky hybrid breed of performer that I feel like is pretty hard to replicate when you're in that factory that is today's path to becoming indoctrinated into our world.
I agree.
Awesome. For Lita, for you specifically to begin with, you inspired an entire generation of women's wrestling. Especially like, you know, the main event on Raw with Trish, and then just everything you were doing. You were doing the things that they're thinking, oh, the women wouldn't do, the dives, that you would take the chair shots. How does it feel knowing that you were probably one of the main reasons you get things like Shimmer and Shine and all those things because you were the originator? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, it's interesting now because I feel like you need so much distance to get a little perspective. When you're in the moment, you don't realize how memorable these things will be. You just, especially when we were in the Attitude Era and we had WCW playing on the TV in the locker room, watching our friends, and we were just trying to get the ratings and, you know, have those opportunities. And I think because of that, you know, the Attitude Era wasn't necessarily focused on raising the bar for women's wrestling, but they were focused on doing things outside the box, and we didn't think we were going to see that tonight. And so that was a way that Trish and I specifically, but, you know, got to take advantage of, let's just pitch this wild thing, and it might just be wild enough to have them let us do it. A couple of, you know, frail women like ourselves, you know, and then we got to keep kind of building on those experiences, knowing whenever we would get those opportunities, we just had to not mess up, and then we might get another one.
You know, as Lita's saying that, I'm thinking to myself, the women's revolution really could have started earlier, and I'll tell you exactly when it could have started. I was watching the pay-per-view, and it was you and Trish. It may have been Trish's retirement match. And it was the pay-per-view where the two of you were followed by the Hell in a Cell. And as the cell is going on, I'm saying out loud, because I was with a handful of friends, I'm saying, they can't follow the women. They can't follow the women. And they did not. The women stole the show. I think you could go back, and went back in history, they should have sat, instead of, you know, being, I'll use the term butthurt because they had the show stolen from them, and Mr. McMahon was part of that cell match, I believe. They should have sat down and said, we need more matches like that, and we need to find the women who can do them. They really could have come about 15 years earlier, 10 years earlier.
Yeah, quite a long time.
But that was one of the great women's matches in history. And they stole the show from the guys that night, and they stole it from the Hell in a Cell match. That's saying something.
That is saying, yeah. I think you and Trish's rivalry, I would put that up there in like some of the top tier of wrestling rivalries of all time, because it feels like even your quote unquote bad matches were still 4-star at least.
Wait, what are these quote unquote bad matches?
We're going back to how many stars Meltzer gave us that night in the sheets?
Let me make this perfectly clear. I can't take either of you in a fight, and I will get beat up immediately. So. And that's not my rating. That's Twitter. Yeah, I threw Twitter under the bus. Who cares? Mick, for you, Hell in a Cell. No, I'm kidding. You were one of the originators of bringing deathmatch wrestling to the United States in a bigger way. Now, at the time, I'm sure, you know, again, it was just a match, but how do you feel seeing it still go on? Because I met a deathmatch wrestler named Casanova Valentine a few years ago.
Yeah, I know Cass.
Oh yeah, super nice guy. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And how does it feel knowing that you inspire guys like that, and they can also now, where they couldn't before, they can make a whole career out of it, really?
Well, man,
Shorter
first of all,
career, but yeah.
Making a career out of deathmatch wrestling is not something I advise.
Yeah.
These guys, I mean, it's inspiring in a way to see the lengths they're willing to go to entertain their fans. But I did a surprise run-in on a deathmatch show, and I'm looking at the crowd. It's like, there's 150 people here. There's 25 wrestlers. I'm doing the math. There's not a lot of money to go around. And so Cass told me, Casanova Valentine, he said, yeah, brother, like, we have to sell those T-shirts. Like, and so if someone goes to an indie show and they see someone they like, support them by buying one of their things. And likewise, if you go to a convention, you see a couple of struggling ex-wrestlers, never had a shot at the big time, come on over and buy a photo for your old Uncle Mick, all right?
A totally unrelated note, they'll be back at their tables after this. If you guys, want to go get that merch, just saying. Sorry.
Mick, that reminds me when I was coming up and I was spending time in Mexico and, kind of learning a little bit of the insider. And they said a lot of these people, they originated wearing masks because we perceive them as superheroes and big stars, but they need to go work during the day. And we can't see this face that we know to be like, wait a minute, like, why are you, fixing this in my house or, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then also in that same category, I remember being at the matches in Mexico, and at the end they would throw money into the ring because they can't be relied on just, how you split up the door. And my favorite souvenir of all time that I have ever gotten from a wrestling match, I was in Mexico City in Coliseo, and I had the flyer for the show. It was Emilio Charles against, I don't remember, but he was so bloody. And I told the woman next to me, I really want him to wipe his blood on my flyer. She was like, tip him, give him money, he will. And I went over and I put money in the ring and I handed him my flyer, and I just, and he wiped his bloody face on my flyer, and I have it still, and it is a one-of-a-kind souvenir that I will always cherish dearly.
Gives me something to shoot for at future conventions.
Yeah. For you, Mick.
Meet Bloody Cactus Jack. Bang bang.
As I get to the next question, we do have a microphone here in the center, guys. If you want to start lining up with your questions, again, like I said, no Hell in a Cell 98. But if you want to start lining up right here, we'll get to you as many as we can. So go ahead and start lining up with your questions. But while you're doing that, the WWE's Most Wanted Treasure show. How has that been for you doing that? And has there ever been anything that you like either found or heard about that you went looking for that you was like, I can't believe that even exists?
I guess I'll start. I'll start by saying, and this is not something I'm saying just because Amy's here. My favorite part of being part of that show was strengthening. Not that we always were good friends, but Amy and I became really, really close friends throughout the filming.
Well, it took us almost a year. It was like 10 months to film. So we got to, while we went on our field hunt separately, we spent a lot of time at the warehouse doing wrap-ups and got to, television's a lot of hurry up and wait. So we got to hang out and chat.
A lot of hangout time. And also we commiserated with each other because although we loved being out there actually on the road, we were not crazy about the idea that we were away.
I think we were not pitched accurately what this gig entailed.
We had X number of days of work that we got paid for, but then there was at least that many and probably double number of days where we were out there in the middle of nowhere on the road not being paid. And one of the frustrating things was where Amy called me and said, Mick, I hear you're going to Modesto, California. I live about 20 minutes from there, and I don't live 20 minutes from there. That's a cross-country flight. And I asked the showrunner, and he said, no, for this one we need you. And that was a tough series of flights, and my back was giving me trouble going back and forth because it didn't matter if it made sense for us geographically. It had to make sense for whichever superstar they were trying to bring in, to be part of the show. So it was difficult. It was the most travel I'd done probably since 2001, but it was fun and I liked the show. And also I have a brand new nickname / character coming from one of your friends who knew nothing about wrestling or me, watched a couple shows and said, he's like a Rhodes Scholar in the body of a trucker.
It's accurate, right? But yeah, we were used to traveling. Normally you would fly into Atlanta, you'd have a house show in Macon and then Augusta, and then you'd make your way back to Atlanta and then fly out. And so when they pitched it, they're like, yeah, you'll do a few hunts and then you'll go back home. And then they're like, oh, by the way, those hunts will be in Des Moines, Iowa, and then Amarillo, Texas, and then up in Maine. And I was, so yeah, it was quite intense. And especially what we also didn't know is how much of the show was a lot more real than I thought it was going to be. We would really have to negotiate to try to rip people's prized possessions from their hands. And, you know, they really wouldn't know. They're like, we don't know if this guy wants to give it up or not, but try to get this from him. We wouldn't know a lot of times if it was authentic. We would have to really kind of go down that rabbit hole and make sure wherever they acquired these items that it was legit. So it was really interesting, and I mean, definitely a lot more than I bargained for, but I also feel like, you know, not in finances, but in experiences. It was a really good experience.
It was and we all liked being with Booker too. We all really liked the crew. Like it was a great experience, but it was tough. It was tough. And as far as something that was out there that I couldn't believe, I mean, it was an honor to hold on to some of these things, to have Roddy Piper's daughter showing you the, you know, leather jacket he wore in a certain match, and to, I thought one of the nicest things was something that Johnny Lee, I know that was her name, Mae Young. Yeah. Mae Young's original jacket that she wore, and I thought it was incredibly underpriced. You know?
That was another thing. Is so the negotiating was real, but their budget was their budget. They're like, okay, you've got this much money, try to get it. And I'm like, dude, he could throw that on eBay and get it for 10 grand, you know. And so I was like, it's weird that the concept of our show is because there is such a value on these pieces, yet the budget for the show was not quite reflecting that value some of the time. It was almost like working against itself in some ways.
Yeah, because the collectors know what it's worth. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, you know, I made the mistake of generalizing when I was with Cody Rhodes. And I said, Cody, I think we're going to do okay. And I'm ashamed to say this because the area this one collector was living in was, was very modest. And that's on me for thinking that he would need the money more than someone else. And we're trying to get Dusty's classic polka dot attire. And 5 minutes into the negotiation, the guy says, I wouldn't sell this for $1 million. And once you know that, you then have to try to get a loan. So I think that was the one thing. I wish we'd actually procured more things. But we did get a lot of loans, and when Amy and I showed up at Royal Rumble in San Antonio, it was really cool to see the fans enjoying all the things that we were able to bring forward. So that was a great show. We loved it. Not sure I would do it again with the same parameters.
I would just want to be involved in the organizational aspect of it, because they would really get excited. They would literally get a lead, and then they'd want to chase it down like that day, and I'm like, well, is it on legs? Because if we waited 2 weeks, we could couple it with this other hunt that's more in that part of the country, and we could do it at the same time. So yeah, like logistics-wise, it was quite a nightmare, but I would always get caught up and get excited about what we were there to see. And an interesting thing for me, I don't know about you, but some of these people, most of the people I knew or had some sort of connection with whose stuff we were going to look at, and some of them who had passed, I would have these moments, you know, kind of feeling connected to them in a way, and so it was like, oh, this is why there's this show, because these items mean something, and to get the chance to touch them and hold them and you know, talk about them in this way was it was really special. It actually made me kind of archive what I have left and write the matches down and stuff with this, because I just saw it as, you know, dusty things taking up room in my basement, and then kind of got more an appreciation for my gear and my memorabilia that I have.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Awesome. Okay, we do have quite a bit of a line here. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. Hi, can you say your name and your question, please?
Absolutely. My name is John.
Hello, John.
I just want to first thank y'all so much for everything that y'all have done.
Get a little closer to the mic, John.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I just want to first thank y'all so much for doing everything that y'all have done in the business, and the sacrifices in your personal life and y'all's bodies, of course, for what y'all done, so thank you. My question is, 18 years ago, or about a little over, y'all were in opposite corners of the ring, WrestleMania 22. And whenever I saw Lita lighting that table on fire, I knew we were getting ready for something special, but I wanted to ask, whose idea was it to do that lighting of the table, and whose idea was it to go through it?
Edge wanted. He wanted to put his stamp on a hardcore match, and he wanted to do the type of hardcore match people would never forget. And Amy was every bit as big a part of that match as Edge and I were. Really, she's her. I've told the story in front of you, but clearly, if there's going to be anything, I don't want to do something that be construed as anything intentionally trying to inflict punishment on a female. But if it's accidental, we can work it in. And so we did a thing where Amy jumped on my back, and with her on my back, I clotheslined Edge over the top rope. And
all three of us tumbled over.
Yeah. So the three of us were going over, and I said, you don't have to do this because I can't guarantee your safety. You're just going to, I think I even called it abandon ship. At a certain point, you just abandon ship. And
those are not the things you practice.
You can't practice it.
Yeah, no.
Because if you're going to get hurt, you get hurt.
Hold your breath and cross your fingers and abandon ship.
And as I'm doing it, I feel her, leave, and I see that she's safe, and I thought, I'm getting goosebumps. I was like, that's going to look good. That's going to look good. So I was really happy with the match. I mean, Edge, the reason the storyline worked because Edge was calling me out for real on never having had that classic WrestleMania match. And so weird thing is, even though I was surrounded by the potpourri of burnt hair, charred flesh, and blood, even as another man is telling me he loves me in a way that doesn't seem homoerotic at all, and there'd be nothing wrong if it was, but it wasn't, and it just makes perfect sense. And I felt this weight lifted off my shoulder because I knew right then I just had my moment. So it was great, and Edge and I I think we could have had a really great match together, but Amy was the added ingredient that made it all come together.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you got it.
Definitely a WrestleMania moment.
Thank you for your question.
Is the guy wearing the commissioner shirt? Are you wearing a Roosevelt shirt too?
Yeah.
Is that the Disney shirt that I wear?
I saw your picture on Instagram and I thought it was him, and I was like, where is he?
So is that the same shirt that I wear?
And I showed him the picture. I was like, Jonathan, Mick is wearing a Roosevelt shirt. It looks like one of yours. And he said, I just bought that shirt 2 weeks ago.
Oh man, my daughter gave me that shirt for my birthday 7 weeks ago. Easily the most complimented article of clothing. I mean, granted, I don't have that many nice articles of clothing, but I have a nice custom Woofle shirt of my dog.
Nice.
But yeah, that's a cool Roosevelt shirt there.
Who was the easiest and the toughest to work with in the ring? And then current superstars, who would be y'all's, I don't want to say favorite, because I mean everybody's great, but who would be the ones that y'all look at the most currently?
You mean toughest to get a good match out of?
Correct. Toughest to work with. And
because there were people who were really snug, and people wonder why Vader's not on my list of favorite opponents. We had great matches, but they were not fun, you
got a couple of moments that you can live
the easiest, I mean, Steve Austin, Rock, Undertaker, Hunter, those guys were so easy. And that's why they had the great matches with everyone. Tough, man, I don't know. If there's been a good Al Snow match, I've yet to see it. Just kidding. All right, and do you have an answer for that?
I would just say, I got to work with all those people that you just said too, and everyone, I feel like in that era and those top guys really know their role and how to make the most of moments, and that's really what sets it apart to make somebody quote unquote easy to work with, even if they are snug, but to be easy to work with because you make the most out of each spot. And even being, in tag matches with The Rock and Triple H and being in segments with Stone Cold and Undertaker, just really knowing how to milk things and make these one moment count, I find that something that makes somebody a tough opponent in the way that you've maybe framed it is people that aren't so good at that, so they're usually rushing. So you're still selling or like making the most of this moment, and then you get clocked with something that you weren't expecting, or there's just some rushing involved, or the famous going into business for yourself.
I got to tell you, if Billy Gunn was picking up an L, he was no walk in the park in that match. Man did not like to lose. Just, you can let him know I said that too. Go ahead.
We would when they do that, like when coming down the ramp, you'd be like, oh, he's losing tonight.
Hello. Hi. First off, I want to thank the both of you for being amazing. Well, this question is specifically for Lita, so I can keep things moving.
Yeah, you got it.
Your legacy is undeniable, and like he said there, you've inspired a generation. But something that you said earlier that I find very meaningful is that you didn't really appreciate fully at the time. Where I guess my question is, do you feel like today's desire to live up to your legacy is almost a distraction to these people finding themselves and doing their thing and being original and iconic like you were?
I don't know that there's a chance when, there's no off season. I remember being active and people saying, when are you going to get time off? And I would say, I hope I don't, because that would mean I'm injured. Right. So I think that because there is so much, you're just on to the next. As soon as you have a great match, you're like, okay, I just want to get out before the crowd so I can drive to the next town. Like, you're not really soaking it in. So I don't know that anybody is really thinking in the moment currently, what legacy can I leave? What can I do? They're just surviving. And then it's not till after that you get to go, oh, that is some pretty cool stuff.
That's right. I've told a few people when they're down on themselves, I'm like, you can't tell you're moving mountains while you're moving them. Like, you have to step away and say, well, look at what I've done. So I tell everyone to enjoy the process, because almost inevitably, we're complainers by nature, because that's what we do when we get in a car, together, and we complain about stuff. But I don't know of many people who don't look back on their time in wrestling as one of the best times, if not the best time of their life. So that's a pretty good answer.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Thank you for coming here. It's an amazing honor to see you two here in Corpus Christi.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Does Hulk Hogan know you stole his gimmick? You're wearing that red and yellow, brother.
I hope he doesn't find out.
Wearing it good.
My brother and I, we are both huge fans of you. And while I didn't exist in the time that you performed live, he did. But he couldn't be here today. And I would love for you to maybe say hi, or maybe even threaten him if you want.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you come by the table afterwards, I'll give him a little shout out, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right, you got it.
Hey there.
Look at that Disney shirt.
Yeah. You have good taste. My name's Jonathan, and I want to thank you guys. When I was in my 20s as a theater practitioner, they're all reading Stanislavski, and I'm watching Raw and SmackDown. Because you guys, you're amazing athletes, but you're also just wonderful performers, and I'm just so compelled by the stuff you guys do. So, as performers, is there a favorite moment, maybe of inspiration in a storyline that you had in your careers? Maybe like something that was unexpected, like an improv moment, just with your characters that you can remember?
For me, it was riffing with The Rock. I was riffing with The Rock and ripping off his catchphrases simultaneously. Yeah. And we would just go out there with very little on the written page. They just go, you guys do whatever it is you guys do. And I don't know if that's the same question you're asking about, but it's...
Yeah, unscripted.
I'll tell you what, there was this moment I had after I got out of wrestling, because my wife and I'll try to bottom line the story. My wife and I were able to see a lot of acts at a 2,000 seat theater in on Long Island called the Westbury Music Fair. And you were generally seeing acts on their way up or acts that had plateaued many years earlier. And when you see those acts, a lot of them don't look like they want to be there. And then I went to see Willie Nelson, and within 2 minutes I got goosebumps because I thought, there's no place else he'd rather be than on that stage. So some people could look at, older wrestlers, go, oh, they got to go around these Comic-Cons. And of course, everyone has a moment, and probably a lot of moments when there's no line. And it's like, some people might say it's kind of sad. It's like, I get to go where I want, when I want, hang out with people I like, and even on a bad night, make more than I did in all of 1988, so, but seeing Willie Nelson and understanding that it's not about the size of the crowd, it's about what you bring to the table. And, I honestly, another moment for me was when Sasha Banks showed me a photo of her visiting me at one of my appearances when she was like 12. And I don't look like I want to be there. And so now I make it a point to give everybody the best interaction I can, and if I happen to have a bad day where I'm not feeling it, then you know what I do? I pretend I want to be there so you can't tell the difference. So I don't know if that answered your question, but...
Yeah, good enough.
Okay.
Good enough. Yeah.
We have time for maybe 5?
Maybe about 3 more.
3 more questions.
So 3 more.
So-
Sorry,
We'll
guys.
do what I call the lightning round.
Yeah,
We'll
lightning
do
round. Okay, lightning
3
round,
questions,
If you make them quick, we can do them.
3
Name's
questions.
Joseph,
and then
huge
we'll
fan.
answer 3 quickly.
Okay.
Name's Joseph, huge fan. Thank y'all for being an inspiration growing up and imagination and everything. Mick, this is a question for you. So why a sock as a prop? Was that something that was, because I remember growing up playing wrestling with my cousins in the living room and running to my dad's, drawer and pulling out that white sock and, getting ready to use it. So why?
So, okay, we'll go there. We'll get the next 2, and then we'll knock out 3 answers
Yeah,
for you
okay,
really quickly.
okay.
What inspired your many gimmick changes? Like one from Dude Love to Mankind and Cactus Jack. What made y'all switch so many times?
Okay.
Love
2.
that. And then what last one? Hi, go ahead.
How did you become Mick Foley in the WWE?
Okay, Mick,
Okay.
go for it.
Well, I am Mick Foley. And so after the gimmick changes, Dude Love was a character I created in my head when I was 18, who was everything that I wasn't in real life. He was cool, and he was laid back, and he was hip, and he had a way with the ladies, all the things I did not. I decided to become Cactus Jack until I could become good enough to be Dude Love, but then Mother Nature had a talk with me, letting me know I was never really meant to be Dude Love. Cactus Jack was going well until a certain somebody decided that I didn't look like a star, and the only way he would bring me in, Jim Ross brought up my name for like the upteenth time at a booking meeting, and in the fall of 1995, Mr. McMahon slammed his hand down on the table and said, "All right, I'll bring him in, but I'm covering up his face." And that's how I became Mankind. So there you go.
I want to know why the sock.
The sock. Hey, one of the things, the Attitude Era, you were just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. And one day I went with just directions to supposedly cheer up Mr. McMahon, but actually infuriate him to the point where he threw us out. And I had Yerpel, the birthday party clown, with me. I had a couple of other horrible gifts. And I asked Al Snow, I said, "Al, I feel like I need one more bad gift." And he said, "How about a sock puppet?" And I didn't understand. And he said, "Everybody hates a sock puppet." And there was just something about that little thing we did in the hospital that people took to. And it was the fans who made it more than a one and done, because the fans in Detroit actually had signs. They were chanting Sacco's name. And that was 26 years ago, right? And now I'm still selling socks. Yeah. Only drawback is I got held up at the border in Canada for an hour because the guy could not figure out why I had 100 socks in my luggage.
Thank you, guys. We'll do the next 3, or we have 4 left. We'll do these last few, and then
We'll do these last 5,
yeah.
lightning round.
Lightning round last
And
one.
then Amy and I are going to lead us in the world's largest conga line back to our tables. No, I don't think they are in on that. Okay.
Lita, I had a question for you. not only were you a huge part of women's wrestling as a whole, but specifically in hardcore wrestling, like getting involved with Mick and Edge in their WrestleMania match, but then also the legendary TLC matches that you were involved in. What was it like to push that frontier as well for women?
Oh, I mean, I felt so fortunate to be part of the TLC club, and anything that they would let me do, all I wanted to do was be involved as much as I possibly could. And then when I wasn't involved, after getting 3D'd or thrown through a table or whatever it was, I had the best seat in the house, which was on the mat right below, looking up and getting to watch the rest of those matches. So, I mean, I look back on that time really fondly.
Good answer.
Good, yeah.
All right, so my dad used to come down here and watch you wrestle at the Coliseum.
Yep.
He wanted me to ask you a question. During a tag team match, you were pushed off the top rope and missed the mat and busted your head on the concrete. Do you remember that match?
I think he's talking about my 1990 match with Mil Mascaras.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a tag team match. Mil drop kicked me. And that was a tough one because he missed his flight. He only showed up 10 minutes before we went into the ring. And so we did the best we could, and we had that one. Hey, look, I really benefited by the announcers covering for me, even when I was, losing the vast majority of my matches. And if anyone wants to go to my Instagram, it's Real Mick Foley, and there's the quote from Jim Cornette, who really puts me over, even though, I'm not getting the W that night. So I do remember that well. That was 34 years ago. Yep, I do remember it. Thanks.
We'll do the last few rapid fire, and
here we go.
Mick Foley, this is for you.
Okay.
Do you remember the cage match with Undertaker?
Nothing's popping into my head.
More details, maybe? Anybody fall through the ring? Anything?
I do remember it.
You got thrown off the cage.
Yes.
Very top.
Yep.
How did it feel when you landed?
Well, here's the thing. I actually felt a sense of relief because at the very least I knew that the worst part of my evening was over, and then it got worse. So the cool thing is, if you come up to my table, I'm clearly missing some teeth, and it'd be really easy to fix those cell teeth, but I'm not someone who keeps memorabilia in my house. And that's because why would I need that when all I have to do is get up and look in the mirror and go, cell match, Undertaker. Yeah. So I love that match. I resented it for a while because I thought it did not allow people to, appreciate anything else I did. But I got to tell you, 26 years after the fact, when something's iconic and it's one of the reasons that people are willing to come here and, allow me to make a comfortable living, it was one of the best things that happened to me. Yep. Thanks for your question.
All right, we'll do these last two back to back.
Last two, yeah.
Real quick, whenever it comes to the most wanted treasures, out of curiosity, what are y'all two's top treasures that you would like to see, just in general?
That we did get, or that we
you
want
would like
to
to see?
Okay, cool. And then last question.
So this is for Lita, and I gotta say that Eddie Guerrero is, in my opinion, one of the best technical wrestlers. And when I was a kid, I saw when you were up on the top rope and you jumped off, he caught you and power bombed you.
Yeah, he did.
How did that feel? Because that looked like it hurt.
Yeah. So I'll go to that, and then we can do our treasure if you have one. So that was a thing, as I've talked about, I've mentioned a few times. I was so enamored with all of the things the guys got to do, and I wanted nothing more than to be allowed to do some of the same stuff. And I came up with that spot. And maybe I go to give you the Hurricanrana, but you catch me and you powerbomb me on the floor. And he's like, no, I'll kill you. I'm not going to do that to you. And I fought for it all day long. And I was like, well, if you come up with something else, I'll entertain that. But that sounds exciting. That sounds like something I would do, and that's something you would do. And they couldn't come up with anything better, and they finally agreed, and it separated my shoulder, and it very very much hurt, but I would not tell anybody because I had gunned for that position all day long. And I remember S.A. Rios picked me up by the shoulder that was separated off the ground, and I was like, oh, and I pulled my shoulder in, and Tori Pak was in the locker room, and she was like, oh my gosh, that looked brutal. And I was like, can you help me take my clothes off? I can't change, I can't move my arms. And she went and told the trainer, so I got busted that I was not, in fact, invincible, and Eddie Guerrero was right. He was going to murder me that night. But I mean, I was still like, I was honored. I was like, oh, Eddie Guerrero just separated my shoulder. I'm so honored.
It's pretty cool, right?
I've actually separated my shoulder 10 times, so I know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm only 10% as tough as you, so I mean, I'll sit down. And as far as the treasures, is there something that you would love to recover?
Actually, there is. Did anyone see the Young Rock episode about Christmas that was leaned pretty heavily on me? So I got a message from The Rock that he thought I should watch that episode because he thought I'd like it. And it really touched me, you know? It really touched me to the point where I'm sitting by myself in a hotel and I'm fighting off tears. And then my son, my oldest son, Dewey, got a message from Brian Gewirtz, who runs Rock's production company. He says, DJ would like to send Mick a gift. And I asked so The Rock in the show was giving me 2 tickets for a vacation. And I liked it, my character liked it, but I tried to explain to him why Christmas was so much more. And I went over and showed him what he claimed to be a figure of Tori Amos playing the piano made out of every thumbtack I'd ever had in my body. And I asked if they could give me that figure. But it might have been done through AI or CGI. But if it's out there, I want that Tori Amos statue.
You've got to recover that. You're flying to Modesto for that thing.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, each time we did hunts, it made me think of other things that I wanted to get. And one thing, we did stop by China's sister's house, and she had a lot of cool mementos, but none of her gear. And I would love to be able to collect some more.
Whose sister?
China.
Yeah.
Kathy. Yeah. I would love to really properly honor her. I'm glad to see the WWE at least acknowledging her and giving her props for many of the milestones that she created in the legacy of WWE. But I would I don't have enough. I want more immortalizing of her accomplishments. And again, thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank
and
y'all.
we will go back to our table, so come say hi if we didn't get to you.